as all of
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, as all of you know, this is the last session for PD1, last knowledge sharing session. So after that, we will have a kind of one-to-one, just some questions or kind of evaluation to understand you have completed the trail mix and ready for the next phase of this boot camp. That is going to be Q&A, facing how to face the QA question and answer, and we will be giving more materials to study also. So at the end, we will have the mock exam. So we will arrange the Q&A sessions and the materials, and we will let you know through the WhatsApp. So about the mock exam date and all, we will plan it out and we will announce it later once all are on the right track. What I mean by all are actively participating in the boot camps as well as completed the trail mix and ready for the exam. So with the evaluation, we are going to limit the participants for the mock exam, and those who are successfully completed the trail mix as well as the necessary modules, they will be eligible for the mock exam. So that will be our next steps. We will give the introduction through the guidance through the WhatsApp groups. So Thirumagal, now we can get started with.
Okay, hello everyone. So I think I have already done a session, so you all know about me. So I'm working in CMS as a senior software engineer. So yeah, so let's move to the session today. Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen. You all can see the screen, right?
Yes, dear.
Brenda. Yeah, okay. So asynchronous Apex. So yeah, so I didn't prepare a good slide, but the concept is the important thing. So yeah, let's move to the topic. So before we look into the asynchronous Apex, first we have to understand what is synchronous and what is asynchronous, right? What is the difference between these two processes, right? So if you understand the concept of these two syntax only, you can working on a code or in a programming language, right? So what is synchronous? Let's say you have a process A and a process B, right? So you are sending a request from a process A to process B, and until the process B give you a response, you have to wait, right? You can't do any other actions, right? That is called synchronous. But asynchronous, let's say you are sending a request to process B, until the process B return the response, you can continue working. You don't need to wait for the process B response, right? So I will tell you a real world example so that you can easily understand. So let's take a supermarket. So you are going to supermarket and you are purchasing the product and you are coming to the cashier counter, right? So the person in the cashier has to process one by one, right? You have to wait until the cashier counter process, the person finish the process for the first person, right? So you have to wait. Let's imagine you are going in a festival time, and if there is a huge crowd, then you have to wait, right? So in the meantime, you can't go out and you can't do any other work, right? You have to wait until he finish his work. So that is what synchronous, right? So you can't start another work without finishing your current task. So that is, so supermarket is the example for a synchronous system, right? So what is asynchronous? Asynchronous, let's take McDonald's. So in nowadays in McDonald's, you don't need to go and put your order and you have to wait, right? Simply in a system you can put your order and they will give you a receipt, and also they will give you order number, right? So that you don't need to wait in the McDonald's. So until, so they in a TV they will display your order number, right? Your order number is ready, you can collect your order. So until that time you can go out and you can do many work, right? So that is called asynchronous. You don't need to wait until that first request completed, right? So and also let's say let's say you are coming, first person is ordering and you are the 10th person coming to the McDonald's and you are entering your order. But sometime it will, sometime you will get your order before the first person get his order, right? Based on your based on your order that you have selected, right? So that is the advantages in the asynchronous system, right? So whenever the resource is available, you will get your order, right? So that is called asynchronous. So I hope that now you understand the clear difference between the synchronous and asynchronous. So the finally synchronous means you have to wait until the first request finished, until the first request sent you the response. But asynchronous, it's not like that, right? You can do multiple tasks at the same time, right? So that is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous. And now we will look how this works in Salesforce, right? Okay, this is another example. It's a programming example I'm going to explain for the synchronous. Let's say you are uploading a video in a YouTube, right? And there is an upload button. You click upload, and the screen is freezed. That means you can't edit your title or edit your description until that video upload finish, right? So that is called synchronous. And for asynchronous, let's say you are uploading the video, and once you click upload, it will give you return back a video upload URL, right? And at the same time, you can edit the title or description. So that is called asynchronous. So the video is also uploading. At the same time, you can edit your details of your video, right? That is called asynchronous. Now in Salesforce, how we can do that? Okay, now you are going to do you have a requirement saying that, okay, you want an immediate result required. Okay, if you want an immediate result required, that is synchronous, right? So it is come to the synchronous, and you can do it through triggers, right? If no, then asynchronous process coming to into the picture. It can be done through several methods, right? So these are the 4 ways that you can do asynchronous process in Salesforce: future method, queuable Apex, batch Apex, and scheduled Apex, right? Now we are going to see how these 4 asynchronous Apex are working and how we can code, right? Let's move. Okay. So this is the basic of asynchronous Apex in Salesforce. As I said, you batch Apex, schedule Apex, future Apex, and queuable Apex. Let's take a pizza. Okay. Let's take a pizza, and let's say you have 6 pieces in your pizza, right? If you want to eat the pizza piece by piece, it called batches. You are chunk the records batch by batch. That means piece by pieces, right? So that is where batch is coming. You are chunk the record and doing the process. That means eating a pizza piece by piece, right? That is called batch Apex. What is schedule Apex? Okay, you are saying, okay, at 6 p.m. Sunday, I'm going to eat this pizza. Okay, that is called schedule Apex. You are scheduling a process, right? And future Apex, eat pizza in some time, right? Whenever I get a pizza, I will eat. Queuable Apex is also the same concept of future Apex, but with the simple, the small difference, like you can get the details of the job. Okay, I will explain that later, but queuable Apex and this future Apex are almost similar, right? So this is the basic difference of 4 type of asynchronous Apex in Salesforce, right? So now first we will see the batch Apex. Okay, what is batch Apex? Okay, I will tell you a real example. Let's say I'm giving you 100 chapatis and a dal full of a cup, right? And I'm saying you, okay, eat this chapati and dal at once. Can you eat? No, right? You can't eat 100 chapati with the dal at once. But if I give you two chapati, and you are finish eating the 2 chapatis, and after you finishing the 2 chapatis, I am giving another 2 chapatis. In that way, you can eat, right? So that is what called batch. You are going to divide the record into chunk by chunk, and you are going to do the process chunk by chunk, right? So that is called Apex. So here in this diagram, you can see once I submit the process, it will divide the process into jobs, right? So jobs are submitted. So you can see the jobs are queued, and you are preparing. So in the preparing, its chunks will be created, and you are processing. And based on the exceptions and the record type, it will give you the status of the process, right? So when you write a batch in Apex, okay, this is the way you have to batch in Apex. So the batch class should be a global class, because when you create a package outside of the also can access your batch. So that we always declare a batch job as a global class. That is the important thing. And it should always implement this database.batchable interface. So this database batchable is an interface. So when we write a batch class, you have to implement that interface. And in batch, there are three main methods, right? One is the start method, and other one is the execute method, and the last one is the finish method, right? So this is the order of this is the format of your batch class that you have to write, right? So when you code, if you forgot to write this finish method, it will give you error, right? Because a batch class will be completed if you have these three methods. Right, now we will see what is this start method, execute method, and finish method. Okay, now I will tell you. Okay, now you have 100 records, right? 100 records. Now you are going to do some updates. Okay, there is 100 leads, let's say 100 lead, and you are going to update those 100 lead, right? Now we are going to say, okay, don't update 100 at the same time. Update 10 by 10. 10 by 10. Okay, first update the 10. After its success, update the another 10, like that, right? So here you have to consider that start method and finish method will execute only one time for that 100 record chunk by 10. But execute method will be run 10 times, right? So you have 100 records, you are going to process 10 by 10, then that means 10 times, right? So execute method will be executed 10 times, but the start and finish method will execute one time, right? That is the thing you have to remember. Now we'll see what is start and execute and finish. Right, this is a simple example. In start method, it used to collect the records that you want to process, right? So here in this example, we took an example of account. Here we are updating the account name. So in the start method, you have to collect the record. What are the records you want to process, right? That is called start method. In execute method, you will send the collected record from start method to execute method, right? So you can see you have a parameter of list of account. Then in the execute method, you will do the process. I'm looping through the account and I'm setting the account name, and we are updating that inside the try catch block. Then finish method. Finish method mean after you finish all the records, like all the 100 records, this finish method will run. So for example, inside the finish, you can send a mail. Okay, this batch is completed. Something like that you can do in a finish method, right? You can notify the user, okay, this batch is completed, something like that. Okay, so this is the way that you have to write a batch in Salesforce, right, in Apex. So here, okay. Okay, what happens? So let's say you have 100 records. Okay, and this is the way you have to initialize the batch, right? So you have to call the batch class and execute batch, and you have to pass the number of records that you want to chunk, right? So here we are giving 200. So when it process chunk by chunk, what happen if there is an error in between, right? Okay, we are processing first 10, that 10 is success. Then we are coming to the another 10 is also success. And we are coming to the another 10. In the third step, there is an error in the record, right? There is an exception. Then what should happen to that batch? Then that third process will be only failed, right? Then other chunks will be working continuously, right? That is one thing you have to remember. And in the third process, if you know that in database update you can put all or none, right? So all or none means if one record failed, all record will be rolled back, right? So using that syntax, you can decide you want to roll back all the process you have done or not, right? So using that kind of thing you can handle. So let's say if I use a database update, if there is a error in one record, then other 9 record will be also get rolled back, right? So this is what happened when the record fails. And also you can handle the error record. So after you update, so you using if you are using a database insert or update, you can get the fail record, right? So you can get the fail record and you can get the exception details and you can log that into a particular object, or you can send a mail. So like that, you can keep track of the fail record as well in batch class. Okay, that is the other thing. And okay, and in batch, there is another thing called this stateful and non-stateful. Basically, by default, a batch is non-stateful, but you can make it as stateful, right? Okay, what is stateful? Let's say I'm going to run the batch 10 by 10, right? 10 by 10. At the end, you want to know how many records you have processed, right? So in that kind of scenario, you can create an integer variable summary, and the execute method you can count, right? So you can keep the value, right? So if it is not stateful, when you process the second chunk of record, this will be again reset, right? If you don't put as stateful, this the value of this summary will not keep for the next chunk of records. If you put as stateful, that summary value will be there until you finish your batch and you can get the final value, right? That is called stateful batch and not stateful batch. So this is all about batch, the basic things that you have to know about. So as I said, a simple idea is process your record chunk by chunk, right? Eating a pizza piece by piece. So remember that. Now, okay, future call. Now we finish batch method. Okay, now we will see future call. What is future call? Okay, before that, I will tell you a simple example where you have to use a batch class. So sometime when you get a requirement, you will get doubt. Okay, what is the process I have to apply for this requirement? So let's say you have a requirement that you have to upload a huge amount of data based on this condition. In that way, you will use batch, right? So because when you can't update a huge amount of data at one time, you will get a limit exception, right? Governor limit will be hit. So that kind of requirement, you can divide the records chunk by chunk and you can update so that you will not hit the limit, right? So that is the example for batch. Now let's say future calls. So what is future call? The easiest thing to identify, remember is, yeah, read this. Whenever the resources are available, then only the task will be done based on the availability of the resource, right? So future method will wait the resource available, right? So I will tell you a simple example. So you have there is a car and a driver, and the driver has to drop the passenger to the airport, right? That is the first task. At the same time, the driver has to drop a package, a heavy package to his house, right? So there are two tasks, and the driver. So you have only one car and one driver, right? But you have to do two tasks, right? Now you have to decide, okay, which one you can what we can do, right? So if you compare these two tasks, which is heavy task, taking that package, huge packages and dropping that to the house is the heavy task, right? So in that case, dropping a passenger to the airport is a normal task, but taking some packages and dropping that packages to some warehouse is a heavy task, right? So in that, so now let's say the driver went to the airport, right, to drop the packages. Now the second task should wait until the driver comes, right? So here the driver is the resource, right? And sending the passenger to the airport is a normal task. That is the first task will be executed. But this package have to wait until the driver available, until the driver stop the first passenger to the airport. The heavy lifted task should wait. No, That is what the resource available. Until the resource available, the heavily lifted task should be wait, and once the resource available, it will do the process. Okay, that is a simple example. So yeah, so in future call, but it is very simple. In your normal method, you have to put a future annotation, right? If you put a future annotation, it will consider as a future method. In programming wise, if I tell an example, let's say you have to, so after clicking a button, you have to send 100 mail to 100 users, let's say. In that case, you can put that as a future method, right? Let's say you have to update a record, at the same time you have to send some mail to the set of users. In that case, you update the task will be done in a synchronous way, but you can move that sending mail to a future method, right? Because it's a heavy task, something like that. And if you take a call out, if you want to send a request to an external service from Salesforce, then in that case also you can make it future, because until the resource available in the external system, you have to wait, and once the resource available, you have to get the resource from the external system, putting back to the Salesforce, and you are updating, right? That is called future. When the resource is available, you will do the process, right? So that is future. So when you run a future method, you have to put a future annotation and see the applicability, call out, perform complex calculation, like that. You can do this future method. And the parameters like primitive types will be only support, right? So that is the example for future method. Yes, so this is some other consideration, like it should be a static and it will return anything other than void, like that. And you can't call another future method from a future method, right? So those some consideration limitation that you have to look into. Um, Now let's move to the queuable apex. Okay, let's see what is queuable apex. So as I said you before, queuable apex and this future method are mostly they have the same same kind of concept logic, right? But with some extra features. When you come to the queuable apex, it has some extra features than future method. You know what is that extra feature? Let's say you are running a future method, right? But you don't know whether that future method is completed or not. You don't know, right? So you set a future method and that's it, and you don't know whether it's completed, what is the status of that future method I set. But in queuable apex, you can track the job status. You know, when you make the method as a queuable apex, you can track the job. Okay, whether that job is completed, in which state that job is there, right? So that is the difference. You can keep track of the status of the method, right? That is the difference. And yeah, so this is the advantages when you use queuable apex. So you can get an idea of your job, right? So uh, then you can monitor the ID. Using that ID, you can identify the job and monitor the progress of that job, right? So another advantage is, so once you get the status, you can update the user. Okay, your thing is done, right? So like that. So that is one. And primitive type. So using non-primitive. So for example, in future method, you can't pass subject type parameters. You can only pass primitive type. That means integer, list, string, something like that. But in queuable, you can use non-primitive types such as subject as well, right? And you can change the job. So as I told you before, in one future method, you can't call another future method, right? But in queuable apex, you can change the job. After the first queuable apex finish, you can put another job, right? So based on the first job response, you can add another job in a chain, right? That is the other difference. How to make a apex as queuable? Let's see. Okay. Yeah, okay. This is how you can select track the status. How can I use the job ID to track the job? So this is a simple query that you can, using the job ID, you can simply get the status and error information from that queuable Apex, right? So this is the sample query. And yeah, so you have to put implement queuable, and in the execute method, you have to run your code, and then when you have to put just system.enq, then you have to equal to the job ID, right? This job ID will give you a job ID. Using this job ID, you can track the progress, right? So this is what queuable Apex. And yeah, and this is how you can chain the queuable job. So in the process, you can chain the second job, right? NQ job and new second job. So this is about queuable Apex. And scheduled Apex. Scheduled Apex is easy. As I said you before, if you want to eat the pizza at 6 p.m. on Sunday, right? You are going to schedule. So for that, after you run writing the Apex class, you in the Salesforce, there is a setup. So there you can click schedule, and you have to select the Apex class, and you can schedule in Salesforce as well, right? Directly you can in Salesforce, you can select the date, time, and everything, and you can schedule your Apex class. Using code, how you can schedule is using this cron expression. So you have to learn about this cron expression. That means setting when you have to run this, right? So this is a sample syntax, like you can mention the second, minute, hour, date, like that, using this expression. So sample I will tell you. So this is your Apex class, then you have to put a cron expression. So 10 means, actually I'm not sure what is this, but it is like it is giving you the second, hour, minute, something like that. So first you have to study how to write the cron expression for a, to mention the time. And using the cron expression, you have to mention the time like this, and you have to schedule it with the cron expression. So at that particular time, so for example, here this job will be run every month, second at 10 a.m. Right? So here you can see every month, second at 10 a.m. So here 2 is it's the date, and 10:10 is the time. So this is how you have to mention the cron expression. So this is the second way to schedule Apex, right? So you can schedule Apex using code, and also using the Salesforce setup. If you go to Salesforce setup, and there is a way to schedule your Apex class, right? Okay. Okay. When you so this is the final summary. So like if you want to process large volume of data, as I said, you have to use batch, right? You have to divide the data chunk by chunk, and you have to do the process. Execute logic at a specific time, right? If you want to execute a process in a specific time, you have to schedule a Apex, right? So that is one. If you want to perform a web service call, future method. So that means when the resource is available, uh, it will return the data. So based on that data, you can perform your web service call. Chaining, if you want to chaining the jobs, right? Based on the first response, if you want to chain, you can use global Apex. And if you want to use non-primitive types, also you can use this methods, right? So this is the final summary of the asynchronous Apex. I think that's it. So if you have any, so I just explain you the basic of the asynchronous Apex. So the thing is, you have to understand when to use what, right? And whenever you get a requirement, you have to think, and you have to think about this consideration and limitation, and you have to come up, okay, which asynchronous Apex I have to use, right? So for that, you have to understand the theory, the logic behind the each and every method. So that's it. If you have any questions, you can ask me. So just simply keep this picture in your mind so you can easily understand, right? And yeah, so always like for batch Apex, so whatever you try to write your code inside the try catch block so that you can have catch the exception. So and it is easy to later debug the errors, right? So what if the batch is not running, or in some cases due to some data issue and due to some changes that you have done your org, sometime your batch will not run, right? So in that case, put always catch your exception, so it's easy to debug your error. And the other best practices, you have to cache, keep track of the log in a custom object. So usually what we do is we will create a custom object to insert the error logs, right? Because you don't know, right? So it is not, you are scheduling a batch and it will run in the midnight or sometime, and when in the morning when you are coming, and if the records are not updated correctly, you don't know, right, what happened. So in that case, if you create a custom object called error log, and you have to insert the error records, error message or error records details in the custom object. And the next day when if the batch is not running, or if the record is not updated correctly, you can simply go to that custom object and you can see the records if there are any error logs are created, right? So in that way you can easily identify, okay, this is the issue, yesterday the batch is not run due to this issue, right? So those are some easy way to track your error. So it's very important to not, you have to always think about the fail path, not only the success path, right? You have to consider about the fail path, how you can track it to fix it easily, right? So this is one way. And yeah, you can send the mail at the finish method, okay, everything is success, something like that. And always write code, I mean comment your code what you are done in here. And the other thing is in start method, so since this is an example, I didn't use any conditions, but always try to use where clause in your query, right? So you should not use a query like this, right? So here I didn't. So because you have to only take the records that which want to run process, right? So if you put like this, it will, if you run this kind of code for a large number of records, it will return all the large number of records in the start method, right? So it will cause some issues. So always put where clause and put limit your records based on your conditions. So that point you have to understand. And the batch size is based on your requirements. The default size is usually we use 200. We process the records 200 by 200, but you can increase, or increase the size based on your requirement. What else? So that is about batch fuse method. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, say let's say for future method, so as I said you, it will run in the background, right? It will not give you the results immediately. So in that kind of stage, let's say you have an interface and you are uploading a file into an external system. Let's say you are uploading a file from Salesforce to SharePoint, right? SharePoint, online SharePoint, right? And then after you upload your file from Salesforce to SharePoint, you have to get the URL of the file from SharePoint to Salesforce, right? You have to get the URL of the file uploaded in SharePoint, and you have to get the URL, and you have to update a Salesforce record, right? In that kind of stage, you can use a future method, right? So in that kind of stage, sometimes it will take some time to update the record. So you can tell the user, okay, it will keep trying or refresh the screen after some time. So such kind of message you can give to the user. Otherwise, user will say, okay, I clicked the button, but nothing happened, nothing returned. So in that case, you can put a message or something like that, refresh it in some time, so something like that, right? Yeah. So any questions?
Team, if you have any questions, ask, because this is very important, not only for the exams. As a developer, you should know the things. And if you have any questions in Asynchronous Apex and anything, you can ask. And this is the last session for PD1 knowledge sharing session. So make use of it. We'll give you like, let's wait for another 2-3 minutes for the questions. If you're unable to talk, you can ask in chat also. Okay, but if let's see, we will have the evaluation soon, so that time we are going to ask you questions. So I hope you got everything from this session. Thiru, anything else to cover? Or
Yeah, I think that's it.
yeah. So these are the things, guys, like we can give you the concept, idea, and usage, how to do those things only, but you have to develop by yourself in order to get the full understanding and the comfortable with the asynchronous process, because asynchronous is required. If you are working on a Salesforce project, you will have to have at least 2 or more asynchronous process. So hope everything is clear. So not only this session, so throughout the session we learn lots of areas, and at this level I expect all of you to complete the trail mix, as well as whatever we learn, do practice in your develop org. Then only you can able to face the exams, because the questions will be scenario wise. Most of the questions will be scenario wise, not theoretical direct questions. I won't be say it's hard, but you should understand, then you can able to face the exam easily. So we will let you know about these evaluation dates, as well as how we are going to carry on these Q&A sessions, and about the updates and all, we will let you know. Yeah, so if you have any questions, we can discuss in WhatsApp group also. Then we can bind it up, I think. Thanks all for joining.